The software you did not install. Before you were old enough to question anything, you already had answers. You knew what was sacred. You knew what was shameful. You knew who God was. You knew who you were supposed to become. Nobody asked for your consent. This is not a complaint. This is a diagnosis. In the architecture of the human mind, there is a layer that was installed before the analytical faculty existed. Before you could examine, you were already formatted. The Quranic record names this layer with a single word, Azar. Not a man, not a historical father, a mechanism. The mechanism of ancestral programming. Every belief you hold that you have never personally tested, every reaction that arrives before the thoughts, every boundary that feels natural but was never chosen. That is Azar speaking. And here is what makes Azar dangerous. He does not feel like programming. He feels like you. In the dialogue, Musa, the intellect, confronts Azar directly, and Azar answers him with honesty. This is important. He does not lie. He says, I tell you the truth, so you do not blame me. My manifestation in the I, after a few years of its birth, makes it record in memory the custom, traditions, and beliefs of the fathers. In that period, the faculty of analysis has not yet emerged. With time, all this data became entrenched. It becomes a reference. A reference, not a choice, not a conclusion, not a truth you arrived at. A reference, meaning the thing you measure all other things against. And you did not build it. It was handed to you before you had hands. Musa asks the only logical question, can I remove you from my memory? And Azar answers, impossible. But if you recognize me, you can ignore me. You can stop giving weight to my programming. This story, I'm certain you know it, is the moment you pass through the Ibrahim-Phase. The Ibrahim-Phase. I want you to sit with that for a moment. Not as a religious concept, but as a structural event. There is a moment in the development of any consciousness where the individual looks at what they were given and says, I see you and your people in manifest error. Not with anger, not with rebellion of its own sake, with clarity. The clarity of someone who looked at the stars of their inherited world. The philosophers they were handed, the gods they were assigned, the definitions of correct and incorrect that arrives with their mother tongue, and said, these set, I cannot build on what sets. خلقناكم أطوارا, we created you in stages. Every stage has a ceiling. Azar is the mechanism that convinces you the ceiling is the sky. Here is what Azar looks like today, not in the desert, not in the ancient history, right now. The person who cannot change their political position, not because they have examined it and confirmed it, but because changing it would mean their father was wrong. The person who cannot leave a belief system, not because the belief is true, but because leaving means losing the community that the belief provides. The person who experiences a new idea as a threat before they have even processed it, because the new idea, if true, would require them to rebuild their reference. This is not weakness. This is architecture. You were built this way. The question is only, do you know it? There is a moment in the dialogue where Musa remembers his own Ibrahim-Phase. He says, I remember all of that now. When I look at the stars, not at the stars. I understood that the stars are the philosophers, the geniuses, the systems of thought, every source of guidance, whatever it may be. Through them I was sick, meaning through them I rose. I deviated from the old path. I reached the pinnacle of what I could know. And that was the conflict with you, Azar. Look at the stars. Not studied them, not worshipped them, not replaced one fixed system with another. Looked. The gaze of someone who used the light to find their own direction, and then keeps walking when the star sets. I want to ask you something before this episode ends. Not a question you need to answer out loud, a question to carry. What is your Azar? Not philosophically, specifically. What is the belief, the reaction, the boundary that arrives in you before you think? The one that feels most like you, the one you will defend most quickly. That speed, that immediacy, that feeling that this particular thing is not even a question. That is where Azar lives. You cannot delete him. Azar told Musa that himself, and Azar does not lie. The data does not disappear, it stays in the deep memory of the drive. But there is a difference between data that runs you and data that you have named. The Ibrahim-Phase does not begin with rejection. It begins with a look.